Luna Kendrick woke to the sterile glare of fluorescent lights slicing through the thin curtains, her head pounding with a dull, persistent ache that throbbed behind her eyes like the toll of a distant bell. She blinked against the harshness, struggling to focus on the unfamiliar shape strapped into the crisp white sheets beneath her trembling arms. A sudden realization slashed through her fog. She was in a hospital bed, her hospital bed. And though she could still feel the phantom sting of stitches along her temple and ribs, the soft tightening of cold metal against her wrists reminded her that she was no patient here, but a prisoner. She tried to draw a breath only to find her chest constricted by panic as she lifted her arms and saw they were handcuffed to the stainless steel rail. Luna's heart thundered, handcuffs, not hospital bracelets. And the chilling certainty settled in her gut that whatever haze of madness had driven her to burst through those operating room doors only days before had now brought her to this unforgiving moment. She forced her body to settle against the thin mattress, every nerve alight as the door creaked and a pair of uniformed guards entered without ceremony. Their eyes bore into her with practiced indifference as one produced a clipboard and cleared his throat. "Name?" he asked in a voice as cold and mechanical as the cuffs that bound her. Luna swallowed past the dryness in her throat. "Luna Kendrick," she croaked, voice cracking under the weight of exhaustion and dread. "Charges: kidnapping, armed assault, attempted murder," the second guard intoned, scanning the clipboard as though reciting a mantra. Her stomach twisted as she imagined the headlines already spun by Los Angeles tabloids. "Former patient goes berserk, shoots for Forrester." She closed her eyes, fighting the urge to vomit onto the crisp sheets. Instead, she steeled herself, wrapping the fractured pieces of her mind around the reality that she was accused of abducting baby Hayes, storming the Orrick Cliff house with a firearm pressed to Steffi's temple, and squeezing the trigger in a moment of hallucinatory rage that nearly ended 2 lives. As the guards unlocked the cuffs and hauled her upright, Luna's legs buckled with weakness, but she forced herself to stand, wincing as pain lanced through her side. They led her down a silent corridor where her stitches throbbed with every step, shadows dancing across the tile floor as she was pushed into a small, windowless room outfitted with only a stark metal table and 2 chairs. A single overhead lamp cast a grim spotlight on the table's polished surface, reflecting Luna's own hollow eyes back at her. Across from her sat Detective Marisol Herrera, her posture composed, fingers folded atop a folder bristling with documents. The detective's eyes glittered with a mixture of professional curiosity and barely concealed disdain. Luna recognized her from news clips. Herrera, the relentless investigator who prided herself on wringing confessions from the most stoic suspects. "Miss Kendrick," the detective began, voice even, "you've been informed of your rights. You know why you're here." Luna's throat closed at the mention of rights. She had never been a criminal in her life, only a mother racked by loss, driven to madness by the death of her daughter and the whispered conspiracies that swirled around the Forresters' opulent court. She started, but the edges of her world wavered, memories flickering between the manic that had sent her storming through sterile halls and the tender lullabies she used to sing to her own baby, the one she would never cradle again. She swallowed, blinking back tears. "I lost my child," she whispered. They made me believe Steffi Spencer took her from me." The detective's expression hardened. "That doesn't excuse your actions. You took a newborn hostage. You pointed a gun at a woman trying to save a life. Your victim nearly died on the operating table." Luna closed her eyes, the memory of the monitor's beeps echoing in her skull, the steady warning that time was running out for Liam Spencer, the last promise of hope that she had tried to extinguish in her delirium. Detective Herrera leaned forward, the fluorescent light glinting off her badge. "We have evidence, Luna. Security footage, eyewitness accounts from nurses and doctors who saw you brandishing a firearm." Luna's chest tightened. She remembered the weight of the gun in her hand, the way her finger had hovered over the trigger, her vision blurred by rage and grief until all she could see was the face she blamed for her daughter's death. "I wasn't thinking," she managed, voice strangled. "They made me see her in their place." The detective slid a photo from the folder across the table. An image of Luna's face frozen in the oar, eyes wide, cheeks streaked with tears, gun raised, Steffi cowering at her side. Luna recoiled as though burned. "You assaulted Dr. Forrester's wife to get confession, not to save your daughter," Herrera said, eyes flicking up from the photo. "That's not grief. That's premeditation." Luna's breath came in ragged sobs. "I was tricked," she whispered. "Someone orchestrated it, all the threats, the rumors, the—" She trailed off, her pulse pounding with fear and desperation. Detective Herrera watched her, waiting. Luna's tears stung as she steadied her voice. "They told me Steffi killed Luna, my baby," she said, voice brittle. "They showed me, pictures, recordings, proof that she—" Detective Herrera raised an eyebrow. "Who showed you these? Who put you up to this plan?" Luna swallowed hard, knowing that naming a name might be her only hope of avoiding the maximum sentence. Her legal counsel, if she had one, would tell her to remain silent, but without bargaining chips, 5 years for kidnapping, 10 for assault with a deadly weapon, and life for attempted murder loomed like a guillotine over her head. She swallowed. "Sheila Carter," Luna blurted, eyes widening at her own words the moment they escaped her lips. Detective Herrera's eyes flickered with interest. "Sheila Carter, the clinic intruder, hostage-taker, fugitive? The woman with a history of violent crimes and kidnapping her own relatives." Luna nodded, tears spilling over. "She promised me justice for my baby. She said Steffi Forrester had brokered a deal to protect the Forresters at my expense." Detective Herrera tapped her pen against the table. "If you're telling the truth, Miss Kendrick, then you're looking at a plea deal. Full cooperation, correct testimony against Carter, will recommend reduced charges and likely probation with mandatory psychiatric treatment." Luna's relief was tempered by terror. Sheila Carter was a master manipulator, known to turn on her allies, and now if her testimony leaked, Sheila's retaliation would be swift and brutal. She swallowed convulsively. Detective Herrera leaned in, voice softer now but still unyielding. "You understand that by naming Carter, you're putting her in the crosshairs of the law, and she'll know it was you who gave us the information." Luna's heart thudded. I know," she whispered, tears still streaming down her cheeks as she stared at the sterile table between them. "But I can't spend the rest of my life locked away for a crime I was pushed into." Outside the interrogation room, Luna could hear the muffled chatter of guards and distant alarms as the precinct buzzed with the fallout from her actions. Each passing second without Carter in custody would give Sheila time to vanish once more or, worse, to come after Luna with the vengeance of a cornered animal. Detective Herrera closed the folder and rose, her chair scraping against the tile floor. "We'll start the paperwork," she said, voice curt. "You'll be booked on the 3 charges, but with your cooperation, we'll ask the DA for leniency. You'll stay here under guard until Carter is apprehended." Luna nodded numbly, her limbs heavy with exhaustion and fear. As the detectives filed out and the door clicked shut behind them, she was left alone in the harsh light of the room, cuffs clinking as she shifted on the chair, mind racing with one unrelenting thought. She had just traded one nightmare for another, setting in motion a chain of events that would either save her from a lifetime behind bars or unleash Sheila Carter's wrath upon her already shattered world. Luna Kendrick's confession echoed through the interrogation room like a death knell, and as Detective Herrera scribbled furiously in her notebook, Luna watched the door swing open to admit Hope Logan. Her eyes rimmed with false sympathy and that practiced calm that had guided her through so many storms at Forrester Creations. Hope's gaze slid over Luna with the cool appraisal of someone who has engineered a masterpiece, and in that instant Luna knew the full depth of her betrayal. She rose unsteadily from the metal chair, cuffs cutting into her wrists, and turned to face Hope with all the fury and despair that had driven her to this brink. "It was you," Luna rasped, voice cracking on the final syllable. "You planted the whispers in my ear about Steffi. You fed me those photographs. You orchestrated the threats, and when I broke into that operating room, you egged me on, told me to pull the trigger so that Liam and Steffi would pay for stealing my daughter from me. You're the one who ruined my life." Hope stood perfectly still, her arms folded, lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Detective Herrera leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "You're accusing Ms. Logan of instigating an armed assault and kidnapping? On record, Ms. Kendrick." Luna swallowed hard, tears welling as the last vestiges of her fragile sanity threatened to slip away. "Yes, on record. She told me that Steffi had paid off doctors to bury my baby, that she was jealous of my motherhood, that she would stop at nothing to destroy me. And when I told Hope I was going to confront her, she said, 'Go ahead, Luna. Show the world what Steffi is capable of. Make them believe the worst.' She gave me the gun." Hope's gaze flicked to Detective Herrera, then back to Luna. "Luna," she said softly, her tone so deceptively gentle that Luna's rage momentarily flickered into confusion. "You've been through so much. I merely offered you support after you lost your baby, a sympathetic ear when you felt abandoned and betrayed. I never gave you a weapon. I never asked you to hurt Steffi." Luna's laugh was a broken thing. "Your denial won't save you. I have texts, emails, witness statements." She slammed her cuffed wrists against the table, rattling the metal. "You twisted my grief to your advantage. You used my madness to remove your rival and, afterward, you planned to pair me with Wyatt, your next pawn in this game, so that you'd have Wyatt and Luna bound by tragedy, and I'd be too broken to expose you." Hope's eyes glinted with ice. "You really believe that? That I would manipulate you, torture you, drug you into a psychosis just to engineer some cheap scandal?" Detective Herrera's voice cut through the charged silence. "Ms. Logan, you're going to answer these accusations. Do you deny sending the files to Ms. Kendrick, urging her to break into the and pull the trigger? Do you deny promising to introduce her to Mr. Spencer so that she could claim his allegiance, only to turn him against his wife?" Hope raised her chin. "I offered Luna friendship. That's it. As for Wyatt, yes, I'll admit I see a future for him and Luna, but only once she's received the help she needs, only once the truth about the Forresters comes out." Luna felt bile rise in her throat. "You're plotting to hook Wyatt into your web, too. After you've destroyed my mind and my reputation, you'll groom him to keep me silent, to keep me inside your little sphere of influence." At that moment, Hope's lips curved into a slow, deliberate smile, and her eyes shone with a cold, predatory light. "You're under arrest, Ms. Logan," Detective Herrera said, rising and motioning to the guards. "You have the right to remain silent." As the cuffs clicked shut on Hope's wrists, Luna sank back into her chair, exhausted beyond measure, but the fire in her chest was not yet spent. Behind her, the door closed on Hope's defiance, and in the hallway, whispers rippled through the precinct. Hope Logan, heiress to the Logan fortune, beloved public figure, friend to presidents of the fashion world, now faced charges that could ruin her career, her family, her very name. Luna closed her eyes and leaned her head against the wall, the concrete cold through the thin prison garb, and she let herself finally weep. She had turned the tables on the woman who had masterminded her descent into madness, but she knew that Hope's resources were endless: lawyers, publicists, backdoor favors leveraged against judges and juries alike. Across town, Wyatt Spencer would wake to find himself fractured between the love he felt for Hope, the shock of betrayal, and the uneasy compassion he held for Luna. the woman he had never really known but now stood accused of plotting a war at the heart of his family. Luna knew that the story wasn't over, that her testimony would set off a cascade of investigations, of confidential records pried loose, of political maneuvering behind closed doors at Forrester and Spencer boardrooms, of socialites choosing sides at charity galas. She felt the tremor of destiny shift beneath her feet. The town of Los Angeles braced for revelations that threatened to shatter alliances and forge new ones in the fires of scandal. In the dim light of the interrogation room, she lifted her tear-streaked face and vowed that, whatever the cost, she would see the truth laid bare. Hope Logan had orchestrated the plot, fueled her madness, and aimed to capture her loyalty, just as she had nearly captured her life, and now both of them hung in the balance, two women bound by loss and vengeance, each willing to fight to the last breath for her vision of justice.